Hey, we are the crossover, myself and Chev, showing you ADPs, how to take advantage of them on best ball, Underdog, FFPC, FastDraft, and of course the Dynasty market. Chev, good to see you. I just wanted to highlight first off Terry McLaurin. A lot of talk about Terry McLaurin on Underdog, 33 overall, round three, goes just behind JSN and Lamar Jackson. Over on FFPC, though, great value for Terry McLaurin. Pick 45 in round four, so a round later. That's the second best value you can find in the streets for price on Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy in that range on FFPC. Now, of course, that contract is outlying, but we are pretty confident that the deal is going to get done for Terry McLaurin. By the time this records, you may see that as well. Fast draft, round three, 34 overall, near Devontae Adams, Jaden Daniels, Brees Hall, Kyron Williams. We're talking about similarly priced players this early. You're not going to get too out ahead on Terry McLaurin exposure. You're just going to get requisite. Now, in Dynasty, though, FFD, pick 703 in round 7, wide receiver 27. Dynasty streets are the best value for Terry McLaurin. Big part, due in part due to Terry McLaurin's age and any hesitancy people have for Terry McLaurin this year. It's a lot of, hey, touchdown regression. Well, what if it goes from 13 touchdowns and regresses to 9 or 10? And what if those unrealized air yards become a little bit more realized in 2025? And then what if the catchable target rate increases for Terry McLaurin? There's a lot of what if stories that you can tell that are within reason to Terry McLaurin's skill set that I think you can absolutely take care of and advantage of. But best price, PPR setting too for Terry McLaurin. Go and get Terry McLaurin in FFPC. And then in the Dynasty streets, you can absolutely get that age discount. So if you're trying to win now, in round 7, Chev, in a Dynasty startup, why not go and get Terry McLaurin after you've filled up on some early elite quarterbacks and some receivers? You can load the boat at the other positions, and there's just like a sweet spot of receivers there who are up there in age. Devontae Adams is another one. Calvin Ridley, who I'll get to a little bit later. What do you make of Terry McLaurin here?
Well, I mean, the talent finally lining up with the fantasy production is one of the things that we got to see come to fruition in 2024. Now looking ahead to 2025, we're looking at Terry McLaurin as an aging dynasty asset. So he's after the point where you've made a decision on kind of where you're going to the manner in which you're going to install your foundation of your dynasty team. If you're going to go young, or if you're going to go more towards the win now build. In round 7, you can make an informed decision. And Terry McLaurin's just icing on the cake of that decision. If you've chosen to go win now, you've got some stalwarts, and Terry McLaurin's a luxury piece. But we're also at a point in Dynasty where we can only make a 1-year bet on Terry McLaurin. Now, we hope the deal gets done. You said that by the time this airs, it could be done. I hope so, because I mean, he's awesome, and we want to see him with Jaden Daniels because that's awesome. And I think that where he might take a step back in terms of touchdowns, like you said, it might go to 10, and he could go up to, from 1,030 some odd yards to like 1,300, somewhere in that range. That's not out of the question for a guy like Terry McLaurin. So I'm perfectly comfortable, if I'm a win now team, having him on my team, even though, it's not a long-term bet anymore. So, and then best ball, it's a little pricey for me on Underdog. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
He's really just a player, especially on Underdog, at that price point where you're just safer getting even level exposure. One thing that is a layup, though, almost easily in round 4, if you grab Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels is there. And I've had fun before multiple times doing a Malik Neighbors, Drake London start, who we love, getting Terry in the third, overkilling it, but knowing that I can have a layup with Jaden Daniels. People don't really grab Jaden Daniels. There's sometimes that'll happen where it's like, hey, if you don't have CeeDee Lamb, why go chase Dak Prescott? And then, of course, people find out they have lower numbers of a quarterback unintentionally. With Jaden Daniels, I don't think that's necessarily the issue because people still like him. But there is something about if you're the one to snatch Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels is there and available. So it's appealing on Underdog when you click Terry McLaurin. But with all the surrounding talent with Terry McLaurin, you can't just go overkill on him. So you have to go at other price points. So when it works, it fits, it feels great, but you really don't want to get out too much. Now, Chev, we got a player for you want to talk about, and I really liked him a ton last year, had a lot of exposure. I'm ready to get my heart broken again because I've been clicking him some. But tell me, where are the best price points to get Green Bay Packers running back Marshawn Lloyd?
We're having a fire sale. So this is the cheapest that, if you believe in Marshawn Lloyd, this is the cheapest that he will ever be in every single format to pay to return maximum value. You know, this is generational wealth opportunity. This is, so we're looking at him on Underdog, pick 197, RB 62, and that's up. That's gone up from 196 to like 197. So he's moving backwards in the Underdog ADP. He's going in between Justice Hill and Dalton Schultz. And so FFPC single quarterback tournament, he's going in between Brock Purdy and Jarquez Hunter around pick 150. And then in the Rabbit and FastDraft, he's going in between Michael Wilson and Jarquez Hunter. So, and then our FFD redraft ADP, he is in the 16th round, pick 183 between Tua and Quentin Johnston. And that's a single quarterback. So this is the cheapest that he's ever going to be. And you're following the tea leaves of previous patterns of usage with Matt LaFleur and his running backs. Everybody got hurt last year. And we were all excited for Marshawn Lloyd, and now Marshawn Lloyd is healthy. And it's like no one cares because Josh Jacobs was that awesome. And Josh Jacobs could still be really awesome, and it still lend itself to a role for Marshawn Lloyd to also be a limited efficiency flex play, boom bust, flex play, best ball only type of guy, because we do believe he's that talented. If you know anything about his profile, the issue that we have is just the fumbling issues, but we don't know if that's going to be a problem at the next level yet. So the talent, I'm in on this price point on Underdog. I'm absolutely in on that. That really excites me. So yeah, I can't, I would love to click the button, pick 197 for, in the Rabbit and on Underdog in any sort of competition.
Man, I love it. I've been fortunate enough to get 17.5% Marshawn Lloyd post NFL draft best ball on Underdog. Just clicked today Marshawn Lloyd in the 17th round on an FFPC $35 round 17 superflex, where there's a triflex spot there. So very happy about that. Love hearing what you're saying there on Marshawn Lloyd. And you said something about the fumbling issue, and I seem to recall there was a very prominent running back in Green Bay in the early to mid 2000s. Amon Green had a serious fumbling issue. Different archetype, different styles of game, but hey, Green Bay's had that before, and they've had players thrive, especially for fantasy. But that's definitely a throwback, something that, hey, somebody who might be experiencing back pain now when he enjoyed Amon Green as a younger person. But yeah, I love hearing that. And Chev, how much have you been clicking on Marshawn Lloyd?
So I just finished a Rabbit like 2 hours ago, where that was one of my last picks. I wasn't really paying attention and just being like, hey, it's going to be Josh Jacobs. It's going to be Josh Jacobs. And we were talking about just having a little take lock and then being regretful of your take lock because of just different factors that may come along. So not remembering that Matt LaFleur likes to use two running backs prior to Josh Jacobs' arrival is something that now is like, okay, Marshawn Lloyd's cheap enough to where if we're wrong, it doesn't cost you anything. And even if we're wrong still, we could still get some spike weeks from where otherwise we would be risking a 0 in your lineup. So it's cheap enough to where it's a low risk, a low yield, high reward. And heaven forbid something happened to Josh Jacobs and we get to see Marshawn Lloyd with a workload, I feel like that is the key to generational wealth.
I like what you say there. And of course, law of large numbers with the running back position, how pure it ran last year, we're bound to have some sort of regression there. Not something that you want to see, because when you're selecting Josh Jacobs, when you're selecting Jonathan Taylor, as we talked about him and DJ Giddens prior to the show, any bell cow running back you name, there's that threat. We talk about all the carries that Saquon Barkley had. And law of large numbers, you're going to get some attrition at this running back position. To your point, if you have bags of Marshawn Lloyd, you will absolutely thrive there. And I was hurt last year because Marshawn Lloyd was my number one running back. I think he was my highest rostered across all positions, and it was just the worst sinking zero. But it happens, and clearly I didn't get hurt enough to where, okay, I've got the 17% post NFL draft. I'll cap it and still have bags. But I think the approach in learning from last year is just don't have too much.
Right.
But then, of course, watch. He'll go off, and then I'll say, well, I could have had him so much more. But it's neither here nor there, in life. Maybe just don't get greedy. But you were speaking about the rabbit. The Podfather has something for us on that.
You asked, we delivered a full best ball tournament on FastDraft, but we do it the FastDraft way, and it's called the rabbit, because of course it is. 20-second time clock, 15 rounds. These drafts, they take 20 minutes. That's it. So you get a lot of new people coming in and playing, get a lot of best ball bros playing, exploitable ADPs, no rake. It is the best EV in all of fantasy. You should just go to fastdraft.app, use code FAST. You get a $50 deposit match. These things are a blast, and it's the best use of your funds in all of fantasy.
Just another great format, Fast Draft. We love playing it. I got to do a Fast Draft the other day where I got a Rondé Gaston, who's been looking very good in training camp. Chev, you've hyped him up plenty. I got him as my second tight end, along with Isaiah Likely. A little bit of a gamble there, but I had a beautiful start. I had Bijan from the 102, Lab McConkey, Omarion Hampton, and Breece Hall in my first 4 rounds. So 3 out of 4 running backs, stud running backs to start, and Lab McConkey at the top. And then, of course, those dart throws later. I got your boy Rome Odunze in that draft to go with Caleb Williams. As much as I think Emeka Ibuka is going to be a little bit higher, I did go out and get some Rome Odunze. So shout out to you, Chev. Now, shout out to a player who's on your team. Chev, earlier today, I did post, it was a Tennessee Titans. This might be a little bit of PTSD. A picture of Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown. It must have been AI because they were all on the same team, and they were all on the Tennessee Titans. And then I just quote tweeted and said, man, Chev, look what they took from you. But here we have something that can come back to you. Calvin Ridley. And I purposely did Terry McLaurin today to go along with Calvin Ridley. We saw the similarities in Calvin Ridley throughout the offseason with Cam Ward. I see a lot of this year's Terry McLaurin being Calvin Ridley. Now, to that point, though.
You said that first.
Thank you. Before people were doing their taxes, I'm there. And anybody who's there, look, the water's warm or it's cool enough if it's too hot out. Like, by all means, it's a big pool.
It's
so
nice here.
Yeah, it's
really
good.
Nice
it's really good. Underdog. How good is this? Round 5, 55 overall. Wide receiver 32, right near Zay Flowers and Alvin Kamara. I've always said that Zay Flowers' price is overinflated at the moment. Alvin Kamara, good value there, so you want to split off some exposure. FFPC, 63 overall in round 6. Goes near RJ Harvey, Travis Hunter, DeAndre Swift, and Devonta Smith. Funny enough, we talked about last week Travis Hunter on crossover. He's a cheaper player on FFPC, one of the cheaper spots where you can get Travis Hunter. Funny enough, it's a cheaper spot where Calvin Ridley goes in that range as well. So FFPC, you get a little bit more value if you're believing in this renaissance for Calvin Ridley, who happens to be older. There's a lot of mirrors to Terry McLaurin from last year. Then go out and draft Calvin Ridley on FFPC on Fast Draft at the 5.8, 58 overall, just behind George Pickens, but near a lot of running backs. Joe Mixon, Travion Henderson, James Conner, Caleb Johnson. So the takeaway there on Fast Draft, based on your team build, I would go Pickens or Ridley if you have your running backs already set. if you've gone wide receiver heavy, you can skip on somebody like Calvin Ridley or Pickens there and go for those aforementioned running backs. Dynasty, FFD, this is where it gets great. Wide receiver 49, 123 overall at the 1103. This is the best price in Dynasty for Calvin Ridley. This is clearly due to the age thing and drafters wanting to see. So we have a little bit of a similar problem as Terry McLaurin, but we also have a didn't see it yet. We haven't seen the fruition of the Terry McLaurin season yet, but
Right.
drafters this side of Terry McLaurin are still invested in him to a degree. They like him, 7th round startup ADP value, but then you have 4 rounds later, Calvin Ridley. So if you want to arbitrage, you can get even more value on somebody like Calvin Ridley. The only place you're paying up for is in age, not in price. So Chev, we talked about some scarring moments for you on the Titans. What do you make of Calvin Ridley this year?
I mean, I couldn't be more excited. I'm ready to hurt again. So, I mean, he's pretty much survived. He survived an untenable situation last year to get to 1,000 yards. We talked about the over 1,000 yards and unrealized air yards that we think that could be with Cam Ward, one of the more underrated completion connections of 2025. And that's where our hope lies. And the value on him is there because, I mean, you're talking about 1,000-yard wide receiver at bare minimum, 65 catches that could easily go to 85 to 90, just depending on the accuracy and the rapport that he develops with Cam Ward, who we both believe is going to be tremendous at the next level. And they're already speaking about each other in ways that make you believe that this is going to be a thing. And I'm a big fan of the Tennessee Titans. That's a Corey Davis jersey. So I'm speaking to this from hey, I consume a lot of Titans content and I've seen what they're saying about each other and I've seen what that means for quarterback receiver connections in the past. And so you can create a path to where this is tremendous value. This is another opportunity to establish generational wealth in the best ball and redraft league streets. This is just, I mean, he's going to be a nuke in your lineup if he hits and you're able to get him. You're locking in a guy who's a lock for 130 targets, in the double, in well outside of the top 50 picks. And if he returns any sort of value, then he's he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver at worst.
You can cut it in half.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's just at worst.
That's if he plays all the games and just doesn't do anything cool. But then if he does something really cool, now you're talking about a guy that is going outside of the top 50 that could be very well inside the top 20 players overall because he hits, 80 for 1,300 and double-digit touchdowns. So that's the type of ceiling that I can foresee if this goes really, really well, which it could.
It feels very good. No guarantees in life. But if your antennas are up, you are in on somebody like Calvin Ridley. And if your antennas are up and you're tuned in to the drumbeat, all right, shout out to Sigmund Bloom, talks about the drumbeat a lot. You have this Kobe Bryant-like work ethic where people are talking about Cam Ward is like the first one in, the last one to leave. He is dead set locked in. It's not just hyperbole. He's really coming in there to be serious and to be taken serious. The Tennessee Titans aren't going to be seen as a serious contender, but unless you take pride in what you do, it's not going to come from anywhere else. And heavy is a crown, heavy is the weight on the shoulders of somebody like Cam Ward. But I really do think he is up to it, and he makes it easier for himself with how hard he's working. So not enough can be said about how hard somebody like Cam Ward, especially as a rookie, is locked in. There's no gliding. There's no resting on laurels like, hey, I'm the hot shot. He's not soaking it up before it happens. He's going to soak it up after it happens. And in the meantime,
yes,
we're going to have Calvin Ridley who benefits from that. So not only do we want Calvin Ridley, but even if you don't have Cam Ward on your dynasty team or your redraft, any kind of fantasy team, you still, it's funny, in fantasy football, you still root for the teammates. You want them to do well in order for your player to do well. So we want Cam Ward to do well. And it's not just a want thing. We see it for Cam Ward.
Yep.
We see it for Calvin Ridley. So hand in hand, a good stack there as well to have. Now, here's somebody who we could see tied in tandem. If you don't have Patrick Mahomes, Chev, you're going to be rooting for him, because tell us about Xavier Worthy.
So Xavier Worthy, this is going to be one of the biggest risers. So just since in the last week, since the Rashee Rice news and the expected suspension, if you follow Drew Davenport, fantastic follow on X. Follow Drew Davenport for this news and him kind of breaking down what the expectations are in accordance to the player conduct policy, all that, and people being sharp to that news. There's a 5-spot bump. Rashee Rice was up from, Xavier Worthy was up from pick 46 down to pick 41 since that Rashee Rice news, and just the week since from in the last 7 days. So that starting off there, it's like, okay, well, we're going to get a limited amount of time with Xavier Worthy still functioning in the Rashee Rice role. We know that we're almost certain there's a suspension coming for him. And so then he's going in between Amarian Hampton and Ted McMillan, Tetaroa, don't call him Ted McMillan. And so I just can't click the button. I wasn't clicking the button with very much with much confidence at all, with any sort of confidence, because I'm such a Rashee Rice guy. But now, knowing that Rashee Rice is going to miss a little bit of time, it makes me a little bit less reticent to come back and click that button now, and at least make sure that I'm not completely underweight on a guy that I think could be a nuke for fantasy. I mean, I feel like he has
no equivocations.
No equivocations whatsoever. Thank you for doing that for me, buddy. I think he could have a Deshaun Jackson-esque upside for fantasy.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like
Best
this
ball.
This is the guy. Last year it was Jameson Williams. This is the guy this year to me that could do it on limited efficiency. The Will Fuller annual Will Fuller candidate for fantasy football. This is the guy, Xavier Worthy. I'm gonna make sure I have an appropriate amount. I'm not too bullish because we really like Amarian Hampton, because of the fact that I know I said his name different the first time. It goes back and forth. Leave me alone about it. But Amarian Hampton and Tetaroa McMillan, I'm very bullish on those guys. So if I do 3 drafts, I might click the button in 3 different directions, right? And then from a redraft perspective, going in between George Pickens and Chris Olave, you're looking at the way that it's built out in terms of, all right, so do I need to take a swing on a home run cut kind of guy? And Pickens and Xavier Worthy fit that bill tremendously. So if I'm taking home run swings, like this is my wide receiver 3, this is my flex, I'm clicking the button on those guys. I'll probably split the profile. And then if I need a little bit more security and secured target volume, I'll click the button on Olave. But in those ranges for what he could be, he's a little bit too boom bust. So if you're swinging for the fences, I like the Xavier Worthy pick. If you are wanting to secure a little bit more weekly volume in more of a lineup type of format, I don't know that Xavier Worthy is the best pick for you. And then, of course, in Dynasty, you could just luck your way into this guy being a 130 target guy with high variance, but 130 targets for a guy with this type of speed is incredible. Where are you at? How do you feel about that?
I'm right there with you. As you say it, I see Tetaroa McMillan 8 to 10, even more sometimes, targets per game printed weekly consistently in our sleep with our eyes closed. And then Amarian Hampton, of course, in that range, you're going to want to get more requisite exposure to him. With somebody like Xavier Worthy, it could be a print fest for Travis Kelce while Rashee Rice is out, and then flip-flop with Xavier Worthy. And then there could be a little bit of that role share for Jalen Royals. but I do give the upper hand to somebody like Xavier Worthy, especially how Xavier Worthy finished. He had 2 weeks where he had top 15 finishes. He thrived in the playoffs and the postseason. So there's more to be had, but we just haven't seen that breakout with Worthy and Rice together. We're giving deference to Rashee Rice. I think there's a window, but at the same time, you don't want to get out over your skis. So you made a great point, though. Best ball, set, forget, not have to think about. Xavier Worthy, though, I would say probably a headache in that managed league. So great point there with no equivocations. Next, we have Luther Burden. Luther Burden finally gets back in and signed. He was part of the domino effect of the second round fantasy relevant players, second round players in general, who we had to get those guaranteed contracts in. Remember when Ben Johnson criticized Luther Burden about having soft tissue injuries, got to be in there, not in the training room? I kind of sat there and thought, well, wait a second, hold on. This man does not have a contract. How are you bashing him and there's no contract? Like, what is the deal there? I kind of thought that was interesting, at least.
Right.
Underdog, wide receiver 57 for Luther Burden in round 10. He's the only other wide out in this range on Underdog is also Rashad Bateman. So there's just this like dead tier of receivers where you have QB tight end tiers, guys like Drake May, who I love, Jared Goff, Tyler Warren, and David Njoku for the tight end position. So I think you can flatten this a little bit based on your build, but I am making sure that I'm clicking more Luther Burden. I've been on the DJ Moore is going to get the first crack at the Amon-Ra role, whatever the 1A role is. But there won't be much time in turnaround if Luther Burden is exactly who Ben Johnson sought out and wanted. So there's some thinner ice for DJ Moore. I think it's safe ice for now, but it's not as safe as one might think. FFPC, Luther Burden goes 10 spots cheaper, 126 in round 11. He's gone as late as round 12. So FFPC presents the best value for Luther Burden. On FastDraft, 137 in round 13. So that's another very good value as well, right near Ray Davis and Jordan Love. And I would actually venture to say, while FFPC has a great value with FastDraft, I think it's going to be less crowded on FastDraft because versus 18 or 20 rounds on Underdog and FFPC, FastDraft with the Rabbit, it's just 15 rounds. So sometimes drafters are chopping up the decision for positional allocation differently. So this actually, as I'm looking at it, might be even better FastDraft value differentiation versus the FastDraft field when you click Luther Burden. And he's drafted Luther Burden on FastDraft in the Rabbit in 79% of drafts. So you've got a leg up on 21% of the people who aren't necessarily drafting or drafts where he doesn't even get drafted. So there's just a leverage point there. Underdog and FFPC, Burden's always getting drafted. For Dynasty FFD, wide receiver 36, round 803. Dynasty, he's one of the most expensive versus other price points. Luther Burden, you really have to pay up more in Dynasty. So I would actually look at the redraft streets and stay here, promo cross FastDraft, get the $50 first time deposit offer up to $50 matched. Go and get some Luther Burden on FastDraft. What do you think, Chev?
Easy money. So with Luther Burden, I think the best thing that we could do is kind of look at the type of player that he is, a high yards after the catch type of player, a la a Deebo Samuel, a Jameson Williams, guys like AJ Brown. Look at those guys who are bigger guys. Luther Burden going about 206, if I'm not mistaken, and running a low 4.4 and being one of the guys that really make you, he does most of his work after the catch. So, but he's just one of those guys who's just better with the ball in his hands. So right where he's going. So round 13, it's worth taking a stab because you don't want to be a zero in what could be one of the surprise top 5 to 10 offenses, probably top 10. If he's top 10, if that offense is top 10, then there's a ceiling. There's room underneath the ceiling for Luther Burden to way outperform the 675-yard projected over-under that he has currently. So he could thrash that. and you're able to get that in round 13. So as far as Luther Burden goes, yeah, this is a best ball pick for me. And then in Dynasty, it's you're just making the bet on the talent that is Luther Burden being a former 5-star recruit. And then the breakout, the massive year, there's some warts because last year it didn't go the way, but I mean, he's another player that just got a fully guaranteed contract as a second rounder. Him and Jaden Higgins. So that tells you what the organization believes about him. So while you can't create a path to volume, you can create a path to, fantasy returns just based on where his current price is. I feel like we're on the same page in saying that.
I like that a lot. And part of you mentioned warts was a lot of his low ADOT things that are structured very close to the line of scrimmage is the critique. And this is one of those things where you're not going to be able to see it before it happens, and it's going to happen, and then it's probably going to be too late. If you're not early, you're late in fantasy football for certain cases, and Luther Burden kind of looks like that. And he could be an entire bust because maybe he stays in the trainer room all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He gets in the coach's doghouse. But I like to think that there's a wider web for him than the initial criticism from Ben Johnson. Look, if coaches don't criticize and ride you and give you a hard time, that's actually bad. You want them to praise you, but you want them to criticize you, chew you out. But when you get a coach who's indifferent to you, that's worse than anything at all. At that point, you're just a lost cause. So getting some form of criticism is actually, the normies might think that that's bad, but that's actually a good thing. There's the worst level. That's kind of like purgatory. It's bad, but it could get better. But when you've got coaches who just don't even register much of anything, so it was a strong reaction from Ben Johnson. So I think the criticism, it's there because he wants him and he loves him. He it's that sort of thing. It sounds crazy because people will just take it all negative, but I think there's a lot of plans there, and there was frustration behind not getting Luther Burden going. So maybe we'll see a slower start this year, but the talent is definitely there. So keep an eye on that. Now, Chev, speaking of staying on the field or not, Kenneth Walker, 11 games played last year. Give me, hopefully there's a bullish case here on him. What do you got on Kenneth Walker?
Buying the dip on Kenneth Walker is an opportunity for us to create an edge in every single format. Now, we do have to lend ourselves to the fact that, hey, this is just not one of the guys whose body agrees with his decision to play football. We might be facing that reality because we're just going to be, 12 games, 13 games, 14 games, 11 games. And those 11 games are going to be awesome. I mean, he might be the running back version of T. Higgins. And so when you're talking about a guy who is going to put double-digit points in your lineup in half PPR and full PPR, he's going to be even more valuable. So we dispelled the myth about him not being able to catch passes. And then he's going right in between George Pickens and Chuba Hubbard. So I feel like two of those options, like George Pickens obviously is going to be a very volatile pivot point decision. We're going to do an episode at some point about guys that are newsflash. You're welcome. We're going to do an episode on how guys that are just pivot point decision, like inflection point players, guys that we think are going to vastly outperform their ADP. And, if you hit, you're probably going to win your league or win a lot of money playing best ball. And if you don't, then they're a brick in your lineup. You're going to hate it. The opposite of that is Chuba Hubbard. And so Chuba Hubbard feels really safe. He's locked in for volume. Yeah. He doesn't feel like he's going to ever get into the top 5, but he's not going to be outside of the top 15 either. So he's pretty much locked in. He's the next gen Joe Mixon, pretty much, to me. Right? So with Kenneth Walker, he has a higher ceiling than I believe Chuba Hubbard does. He averaged more points per game last year than Chuba Hubbard did in 11 games. 16 and a half. I believe Chuba was just above 15, if I'm not mistaken. So at any rate, I love the point. Like, I'm going to probably be a little bit more overweight on Kenneth Walker because he's worth so much more in a best ball format. Because if he's out, he's not going to hurt you. But if he's in and he leaves, he's not going to make your lineup that week. So, and then in the dynasty streets, we're the price point where we can buy at, him going pick 69, right in between Colston Loveland and Bryce Young. Like, I'm in at that point. So I want to buy now because this could be one of the ones where, he's in that Breece Hall range next year or higher because he hits in that manner. And he goes to a situation where he's healthy. He can catch passes. He's on a second contract at 25 years old, and he's in the prime of his career. So you want to have that opportunity in Dynasty, and then you want to have the opportunities in best ball because he's going to give you these massive winning weeks where he's 27, 32, 35 points. So I really like the best ball price point for him just because if I'm going in between George Pickens and Chuba Hubbard, I represent similar upside to George Pickens and a complete opposite play on your lineup construction than Chuba Hubbard. So you can make that decision based on which direction you want to go, and he's not a factor for you. Or he is.
Man, you know how we salivated over Nick Chubb and the long runs he would just break like they were there and he would just hit. And he had a nose for it at the end zone as well. You get to the 12-yard line, Chubb can take it in. You get to the 5, the 2, or if you're out at the 40, he can go and take it long. Kenneth Walker, ironically, when he came into the league, it was, hey, what can he do as far as catching passes? But I see Kenneth Walker as somebody who's like Nick Chubb, but can catch passes. 46 receptions last year, and the offense is built for him to thrive. But is Kenneth Walker built to sustain? And you said it right on the nose, right at the beginning. Can his body hold up? His talent is there. The system is there in place. Can the body hold up? So we've got 2 out of the 3. If you're willing to gamble that the third can work out as far as Kenneth Walker's body holding up, you got a great opportunity, leverage versus the field. And what did Nick Chubb not ever quite get? Full backfield share, unadulterated. When Kareem Hunt came by, I think it was year 2, halfway through the season, up to that halfway mark. And it was the after Carlos Hyde got traded. Gosh, there's a throwback on a Friday. I remember it. After Hyde got traded, it was the back half of Chubb's rookie season and the first half. And then, of course, Kareem Hunt came. And there was a little governor always to Nick Chubb's career. Of course, before Nick Chubb got hurt, we thought he would thrive. And of course, he's back with the Texans. But Kenneth Walker is getting a lot of that unadulterated work share. Even with Zach Charbonnet there, when it's a Ken Walker show, he gets opportunity. Zach Charbonnet really only shows up when, hey, Ken Walker is gone. We'll see how that is with the new system in place. But yeah, I've gotten plenty, and this is with somebody, I've gotten plenty more Zach Charbonnet, but I've clicked more Ken Walker. But if you weighed it, it would make sense because there's about 5 rounds difference. I've just been baking in. I've got about 7 or 8% requisite level with the field on Ken Walker, and I've been clicking him more just because there's that ticket. But I do understand, to your point, Chev, there definitely is risk, and he's somebody who I think has been a dynasty sell for that reason. But in the redraft, best ball streets, I'm willing to take on that risk because I only have to do the ride for a season.
Yeah. That's pretty much, You're making 1-year bets with Kenneth Walker just because we have enough information to know that he's awesome at football, but we don't know where that leads us to. Could we be asking these same questions because he can't stay on the field going into 2026? And that's baked into his price point. So,
yes,
the fork in the road can go either direction, and it's not so expensive that it sets your dynasty team back for years. Or, if it doesn't go the way you want it to in best ball, you're not super overweight, where this is, we're in July and we're talking about an auto click and you're way overweight and it just doesn't work out. But that's the nature of the beast. But I would make the bet on the talent, the appropriate amount.
Man, love it. Chev, great time talking to you, talking ball. We had 6 players, 3 each. We looked at the best ball streets, the dynasty streets, all different price points. You play multiple formats, you might as well take advantage of the multiple price points that present for players. Where there's a pocket for one player, it opens up a wave and a tranche for others. So be on the lookout for that. We are the Crossover. We'll see you next week.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.